winter day. This is great weather. So anyway, my name is Mitchel Wong, and it's true that I was the first Asian born in Austin. So I grew up, you could say I grew up as a minority because there were no other Asians around. And, okay. Now usually you have notes when you're going to get the topic, but I lost my notes. So, you're in for a treat. My background is, my parents were in the grocery business. We had a mom and pop store. You can't visualize what that is. A mom and pop store is it's smaller than the 7-Eleven. And you have to work at the grocery store 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Martha, your previous speaker, came from the grocery business too. So we had something in common. Martha and I were in the same University of Texas class. So we knew each other for a long time. I know all about Martha, and Martha knows all about me. There are no secrets. So I'm going to speak about what my journey was like at that time, and see if you can associate with it. Believe it or not, these few years that you spend at the university are just so valuable. I spent 3 years here. I was 17 and left when I was 20. Was really driven because I knew I had a lot of schooling to do. So when I was a child, as I said, we had grocery business, and I went to work for my dad. Well, when I was about 10 years old, just working in the grocery store, and I didn't have much association with anybody else other than the grocery store. So all of my experiences, all of the life lessons that I learned started in the grocery business. Which means my journey is starting in the grocery store. And I'll tell you how I got from the grocery store to become a physician and an ophthalmologist. Because the two are not related. But I had the ability to go in a grocery store and I can look at prices, I can memorize prices, I know what store they are. I mean, that's a real talent, to be able to memorize grocery store prices. So I started when I was about 10, and I would ask my dad, what can I do, what can I do? And so he'd tell me. And he must have been a little irritated, so the last time I asked him, tell me what to do, Dad, he said, in a few words, he said, don't ask me what you can do. It's very important for you to look around and think for yourself and and use your initiative and do work that you think needs to be done. And so, and I was a youngster, but I kind of thought about that, so I never asked him again, tell me what to do. I always used my initiative, and that is so important in life, because if you use your initiative, that makes you a little different from everybody else. A lot of people, if they have a task to do, they stop, they pull out their iPhone, they start texting, things like that. You look around and see what there is to do. Keep focused, keep busy. It's very important. Now, when I was growing up, we didn't have telephones. We didn't have iPhones or anything like that. But there are so many things that you can do to use your initiative. So, it came, I'm going to relate various stories on my journey to become a physician. When I was about 15, I wanted to learn how to be a butcher. So I asked my dad, I said, Dad, will you teach me how to cut meat? And he said, well, no. I don't want to teach you how to cut meat because if you ruin a cut, there's all the profit. We were operating on very slim margins. So that was the end of that. I went to work for a neighborhood grocery store. His name was Hyde in South Austin. I grew up in South Austin. And I started initially as a sack boy. And then I kept persistently, I got transferred to the meat market, where I learned how to cut meat. Actually, I was a cleanup boy on the meat market, but you're there all the time, so they teach you how to start cutting meat. So I learned how to cut meat, and even today now, I know how to cut meat. I know all kinds of meat. I know how to cut chickens. I know all that stuff. I have a talent for the grocery business. Now, the owner of this store, his name was Elmer Hyde, and I'd be cleaning the floors, cleaning the blocks, those big things you cut meat off, and Elmer would be over there looking out at the store, and they did good business. He was making very good money. But anyway, I was just a cleanup kid, and I worked at that job, and I was working about 70 hours a week. Well, I could do the math. In those days, you weren't limited to 40 hours. 70 hours a week. 70 times 50 cents an hour. You know how much that is. I was really into chicks. So, I was at the end of a day when I was working about 12 hours or so, I was home kind of resting, and my dad came in to the room and he said, "You can work in the grocery store, or you can try school." Well, I wasn't the brightest kid on the block, but I thought of it in about 5 seconds. And I said, "I think I want to try school." I was one of those kids that fell through the cracks in high school. I thought if you saw a counselor that you must have done something bad, so you went to the counselor and you reprimanded. So I didn't even know how to apply to college. I knew that Rice in those days, Rice Institute was free, and I wanted to go there because it was free. But anyway, University of Texas was in Austin, so I went to the University of Texas. Now, bear in mind, I was working about 70 hours a week. And my first semester, I registered in Gregory Gym, right across the street. That's where registration was held. So I walk in, and registration was $25 a semester. $25 a semester. So I walk in, and I say, "How many hours can you take for $25? Well, they said, "You can take 15. Okay. But I was used to working 70 hours a week. Not much. So I said, how much do 18 hours cost? $25. It was capped at $25. So the first semester, I signed up for 24 hours. That was only a third of a 70-hour week. But I didn't realize what it was. And I had probably 3 hours in the first semester. But anyway, I always took a lot of hours at university, and I knew I had to do good, because if I didn't do good, the grocery store waited, and I really didn't want to go back to the grocery store. So I left the UT in 3 years and went to medical school. All right, we're interviewing in medical school with all these applicants. These guys are smart, and the professor asking us various questions, and what is your field? What do you know a lot about? And these fellas and girls would talk about curing world problems, economics, all these really sophisticated things. So it comes my turn to tell them, what do you know a lot about? So I sit down and say, well, I don't know how to solve world problems. I don't know a lot about economics, but I do know how to run a grocery store. Got it, ready? So, you know, there's some benefit to not try to embellish to be straightforward and honest. So I started medical school, didn't have a clue as to what I wanted to do. Now I'm going to regress a little bit. I'm going to go back to my UT years. Now, I was 17 when I entered the University of Texas. And on the first day of school, I met this other fellow, we're still friends, named Bill Yee. He got his PhD and headed research the research department at Pratt. So anyway, the first day of school, what are you thinking about? Are you thinking about the classes you're going to take? No. Are you thinking about your social life? Maybe. Anyway, so Bill comes up to me and he says, there's a dinner at the BSU. No, he said, there's a meeting at the BSU. You know what the BSU is? That's the Baptist Student Union. There's a meeting at the BSU. So I tell Bill, I says, I don't want to go to that meeting. And Bill said, they're serving supper. So I said, okay, let's go. All right, this is kind of the first day of school. So we go to this meeting at the Baptist Student Union. And the people that headed up the Texas Baptist Student Union had invited girls from Mary Hart Baylor, which is a school up in Belton, to come down. So we went there, and at that little meeting, I met a girl that just chemistry was right for me, but it wasn't for her. So it was 3 years before we actually went out together, but we got married. So I met her the first day, the first affair that I was at the University of Texas. And it's the time at the university, it can be so enjoyable, but you have to have your priorities straight. You have to have your priorities straight. You know, you're here to get an education. So it's good if you do kind of well, because then you can go to the next step. You're setting up your foundation for your whole life. But it's hard to realize that when you're going to school and have a good time, because there are a lot of benefits, but there are a lot of distractions at the university. There always has been. So it's very important that as you set up these building blocks, the foundation of what you're going to do, that you make the right decisions. Violet said that the name of this talk was Overcoming Obstacles. Well, you know, I would rephrase that, and I would say overcoming challenges, because every day that you get up and you go to class and you speak with somebody is an opportunity for you to make different decisions on what you're going to do and what is going to determine what you do down the road. You have temptations or opportunities in your social life. You have opportunities to choose whether you take recreational drugs. You have opportunities to choose your friends. All of these things, you have to make a decision every day. And if you make the right decisions, you'll be able to live with yourself, and you'll be able to go to the next step. It's hard to realize that. Now, Martha, your previous speaker, was always very, very outgoing and social. Just like she was talking to me. That's Martha. She's been that way for 50, 60 years. And Martha chose to go into politics. And she was a very good politician. I was working extra hard because I didn't want to go back to the grocery store. You can have so much fun here. There's so much opportunity. Just enjoy every day. Wake up every day and say, what am I going to be able to do today? What are the opportunities that are going to present themselves? I never looked at anything as being an obstacle. There are no obstacles. There are only opportunities in life. If you make the right decision and to set the proper foundation, you'll be able to go and do whatever you want. Now, you always speak about success. What is success? As you get a little older, success is determined by how much money you make. It's part of it. Is success determined how your relationships are with others? Yes. Is success determined how you select your partner for life? Yes. It's composed of a lot of things. But I want to emphasize, when you go out and you start working and take a job, the money is the least important thing. If you do a good job, money comes. Money comes. And as you get older, you realize that money is not the most important thing that you have. When you need money, you don't have money. You have more time than money. And then as you mature, you have more money than time. If you do a good job, you will have always plenty of things. Y'all are at a good institution. I know that each one of you is very bright. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. UT is a very good school. So it's an opportunity, if you make the right decisions, it will carry you throughout your whole life. So I met my wife the first day of school here. It was 3 years before we went out. Dad said, that he told me was, number one, that you shouldn't be exclusive. You shouldn't just associate with Chinese, but you want to be inclusive. That's what Martha did. Inclusive means you want to have friends, but you want to have friends, a very type of friend. You know, Chinese friends, American friends, Spanish friends. And at the University of Texas, there's so many people, so you can do that. You can network. Martha's a master at networking. She was very socially adroit. So anyway, fast. So while everybody was putting their husbands or wives through school, we were building a family. We had all of our children, we had 4 boys. And by the time I was in my first year of residence, our family was complete. And you know the old saying, 4 strikes and you're out, so we quit at 4. What's the advantage that you really have to plan every day, plan what you spend? Because when I finished medical school, I was taking an internship, the salary was $125 a month. And so I would go and do my work as an intern, and then I'd take night jobs. We'll call it moonlighting, where I go out to the hospitals and work at night to make money. Because you can't raise a family. Even in those days, you couldn't raise a family of 5, 6 on $125. But anyway, we never went into debt. We always lived within our means. A big treat for us was to hop in our car. Now gas was 29 cents a gallon, and we'd go to a little drive-in and get French fries. It was 29 cents. That was a big treat. So we lived within our means. We didn't go into debt, didn't borrow money, or anything like that. The reason why I tell you that is it's important to know what your capabilities are, live within your means, because if you get deep in debt, then you're not your own boss. It forces you to make compromises in what you do. If you're not in debt, you have more options, more choices. So anyway, we had our family, and I was in medical school. I've always had very good vision. I was walking down the hall one afternoon in medical school, and this professor comes up and says, "You want to help me with an operation?" He was an ophthalmologist. I said, "Sure." So we went in and did an operation. Now, eye surgery we do through microscopes, but it's very, very exact. And out of all the fields that I could have chosen, ophthalmology has been one of the most rewarding, because what can you do when you change somebody's life? Just like that, overnight. I see a lot of people with glasses. Everybody will, over 92% will have cataract surgery by the time you go see Jesus. So we can change lives very quickly. It's not something where you're giving medicine over and over for years and years. You go in, you get fixed. It helps your vision. You can do that with today's modern technology. Ophthalmology is one of the specialties that has incorporated lasers and high technology, and we can do things that we used to not be able to do. We can correct your vision, we can correct your nearsightedness, we can correct your astigmatism. If you're over 40, we can give you both near and far vision. Just like that. And it's actually very reliable. And another thing about ophthalmology is, you'll never guess. As an ophthalmologist, you do not have to ask people to take off their clothes, put on their clothes. Take off their clothes. Well, all you have to do is say, open your eyes. That is nice. Now, I came back to Austin after finishing my residency, and in those days you could hang out a shingle and start a business. One of the biggest decisions I had to make when I opened my office was what kind of typewriter I was going to write. Now, you don't even use typewriters now. You use computers. But anyway, that was a big decision. What kind of typewriter? So I bought an IBM typewriter. But now, there's so much to practice ophthalmology, the level that you need to practice so that you are practicing at a very high level. You have to spend literally millions of dollars on equipment. There are so many technologies that are available, and it's constantly changing. I used to have a philosophy that if you were doing the same thing now that you were doing 3 years ago, you were out of date. I moved that up. If you're doing the same thing now that you were doing 2 years ago, you're out of date. Times are changing. All this technology, you don't realize it. It's really changing fast. So what you have to do is you have to keep an open mind. You have to always be trying to think ahead. That happens in your personal life. It happens in your business life. That's why it's not an accident why we have Austin Eye Clinic. Austin's the 14th largest city. Why didn't somebody else have the name Austin Eye Clinic? It's not an accident why we have phone numbers. 454-2020, 250-2020. It's thinking ahead. And that goes back to the advice my dad said. Don't ask me what we can do, but think of what you can do. Try to think ahead and anticipate. If I could leave any message with you, my message is always try to think ahead. If everybody's zigging and you're zagging, you're going to probably wind up ahead. So each day presents an opportunity for you to find new challenges, and if you meet those challenges, you're laying your foundation for your future life. That sounds boring. I mean, when I was in college, I was not interested in that. I was interested in girls. I was interested in making good grades. So, I may be telling you something that's just flowing off the duck's back. But it's so important that you develop that attitude where you are never satisfied with the status quo. Be inclusive instead of exclusive in your relationships. And just think what you can do to anticipate what's going to happen. We, other businesses that we have here in town, we literally are one of the largest landowners around Austin. My second field of expertise is cattle. That's why we're business. But this is because we anticipated things, and when everybody was zigging, we zagged. So the take-home message is look forward to every day. See what opportunities there are. And just take advantage. You don't have to talk with them. You just take advantage of things. I feel so fortunate in doing what I'm doing. This past week, for instance, there are a couple of patients. One patient came in, just couldn't see, seeing double, had RK a long time ago, and had been around with several doctors. I knew exactly what to do. So we fitted her with some special contacts, and we just have redone her life. Another patient was developing cataracts, worked with microscopes and things, couldn't see what she's doing. These people are going to lose their job. But we can correct their vision. Your vision is one of your most important assets. Another thing that's important, and I find that as I get older, is to be sure that you live a healthy lifestyle. Anybody can take drugs. Anybody can drink a lot of alcohol. You can do things that hurt your body. I'm at the stage now where I never did that. And lead a very balanced life and exercise regularly. My health is good. A lot of it's familiar, but word to the wise, live every day to its fullest. Look forward to the opportunities that you have. You can help somebody along the way. This is a good group of people because you're associated with one another. You can share ideas and build relationships. That's so important. So, meet every day. Don't consider what happens to you as an obstacle, but as an opportunity to meet the challenge. And you really will enjoy your time here. Because you won't be here very long, and then you'll be moving on either to graduate school or into the workforce. So these are the golden days. Now, do you have any questions? Oh, I was so thorough. Yes, sir.
So what made you choose the medicine path after you
Okay, that's a good question. The question was, what made me choose medicine? All right, what I wanted to do, I wanted to be a game warden. My major was zoology and chemistry. So as I was getting close to my degree, I started going out and interviewing to be a game warden. The reason why I wanted to be a game warden is I love to fish. I wanted to ride around the lake with a boat, with a motor, and have somebody else pay the gas. So I went to the first round of interviews. I was still in the running. And I went for the second interview. And the parting message was, oh, we sure appreciate you coming. Don't call us, we'll call you. I'm still waiting for the call. So, I had an uncle who was a physician. I knew I didn't want to be in the grocery business, so I was going to medical school. I was never ill. I've never had illnesses. On the application to medical school, it said, why do you want to become a doctor? Okay. Why do I want to become a doctor? I had an uncle, his name was Uncle Donald. He was here attending architecture school. And he liked to fish. So I asked my Uncle Donald, I said, how do I fill this in? So Uncle Donald was kind of a little intellectual, but more intellectual than me. He said, why don't you put down, you have an innate desire to help your fellow man. Well, that had a lot of big words to it, so that sounded pretty good to me, so that's what I put on my application. Anyway, thank you. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and I wish you the best. Enjoy every day. Get up with enthusiasm. Find out what's going to happen. Who are you going to be able to see? Who are you going to be able to help every day? Because every day is going to be a fun day. Now you have to worry about your school, your tests. It seems like one test after another. But don't be afraid to experience new experiences and to think outside the box. Think outside the box. So many people like to have a job where they're told what to do. They know 1, 2, 3, 4. Think outside the box. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Dr. Wong. We're going to take a really quick picture.